So let's talk about Git. This is the first video in a Git video series. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about these three things. Number one, what exactly is Git? Number two, why you should be using it. And number three, how do you actually use it? Like, what is that basic workflow? So let's get started. So what is Git? Well, Git is a distributed version control system. What does that mean exactly? It just means that it's going to keep track of changes in files in a specific folder. And usually there's some kind of remote server somewhere else in the world that's going to keep track of these changes as well. A common remote server is GitHub, which I will talk about in the next video. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell to be notified when I post it. Basically, it's like track changes for Word, but for your source code, files in a repo or a folder that are stored locally and can be pushed to a remote server when needed. These files can be any type of files, but Git itself suggests using the text files. So source code files aren't nice. Anything with binary doesn't necessarily work. So like .doc files you probably don't want to store, but like your JavaScript, CSS, Swift, all that kind of stuff, totally fine. Throw in there, and Git is going to be super awesome and track every change that you made once you stage it. It's usually used by developers to track all the changes made in the source code and to collaborate with one another. Since it supports working on different parts of the project at the same time, and then you can merge them together. Since each computer gets a full history of the changes that are made in the code or the repo or project, the developers can also go back to another point in time and adjust things there if needed, or just compare where things are. Those advantages also stand for being a solo dev. So let's talk a little bit about why you should actually use it. So why should you be using Git? Well, if you're not on a team, you might be like, but why do I need Git so that other people can pull down my changes and all that kind of stuff? Well, here are my reasons for using Git. There's three main reasons. The first one, it allows you to see what changes you are making. So especially if you're using like something with a graphical interface to keep track of Git, you can quickly see all the changes you've made throughout. Even on the remote servers, usually on those websites like on GitHub, you can even go back and see all your commits and see what you've added and what you've taken away. That is very valuable as a developer, so that you can go and see exactly what you've changed, where you've changed, and maybe you need to go back. Which brings me to my second point. It allows you to easily roll back changes. So as you add things to Git, you're committing them, you're pushing them to that remote server. Each one of those commits is like a snapshot in time. And with it being a snapshot in time, what that means is you can quickly go back to that snapshot. If you're familiar with like Mac OS Time Machine, that's basically exactly what you're doing, where you have all those different snapshots to go back to for your computer's like state. That's exactly the point of using Git, so that you can go back to in that point in time. Another reason that I like it is it allows you to have a backup of your development environment at that point in time. So again, all your code, if you have some node modules, you can do all of that kind of stuff and get it pulled down and get it into your repo really quickly. As long as you're using Git correctly, it'll be a-okay and it'll be there. So let's dive into actually how does one use Git? How do you use it? First off, you have to install it. So let's go to the website real quick and see how to install it. If you're using Mac OS, to get Git installed, the easiest thing you can do is load Xcode command line tools, but you can also go to the website git-scm.com and you'll find it here. So right here, there's a downloads button. When you hit the downloads button, you can go and choose which operating system to download, get it downloaded, installed, all that good things, and then you'll be good to go. This is the only extra piece of software you probably need on your computer. I run Mac, so everything I'm going to do right now is in Mac OS. If you run Windows, you'll want to use some kind of terminal prompt. There's some Git clients on Windows itself, or use VS Code. If you choose to use the VS Code route, it's pretty easy to get started in there. So if you're on Windows, Linux, all that kind of, Linux has a terminal, but if you're on Windows, in VS Code, Visual Studio Code, there is a terminal that you can open and you can run Git through. Or, like I said, I'm on Mac OS. I'm going to just be using my terminal here to walk through some things. All right, so we downloaded Git. So now let's talk about the workflow. There's 5 main steps in your workflow. Number 1, the first step is to initialize the Git repo. This will, or to initialize Git in the repo or in the project folder, whatever you need. I'm gonna call it repo from here on out. Repository is what it stands for. So I'm gonna call it repo. So number 1 is you have to initialize the repo. Number 2 is you have to create or modify folders and files. You have to have something inside that folder in order for Git to actually track it. Number 3, you have to add these files that you change and tell Git, hey, I made changes here. And you have to tell Git what files and folders you need to track, and those get put into your staging area. And then number 4, you commit those changes to Git. So once whatever's inside your staging area, once you're happy with what's inside there, usually you group like changes together. So once you're happy with what's inside there, that's whenever you commit those changes to Git. And that creates the snapshot that I was talking about. And then number 5, you push those changes up to your remote server if you have one. We're not going to push these up to a remote server yet. We're not going to push these up to a remote server yet. We will do that in the next video. All 5 of these steps have commands. So let's work through those commands and figure out what's going to happen there. So the first thing is, so now that we have Git downloaded, we have Git installed, we can see here if I type in Git enter, here are all the different, here are some common Git commands. I shouldn't say all the different ones, there's just some common ones here. Clone, init, you have to work on current changes, examine the history if you need to, all that good stuff. So let's actually get started. So what's the first thing you need to do? Well, the first thing you need to do is actually create your source code folder. We are just going to talk about starting a Git repo from scratch. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to change directories into my developer folder. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a directory. So I'm going to make a folder. The command line, again, I'm just doing everything from the command line here. You don't have to. You could go into Finder or go into Windows Explorer, right click, choose new folder. I'm just gonna do it through the command line since I'm already here. So to do it on the command line, that's mkdir and then whatever name you want for that repo. So I'm gonna say Git video series. So now that I've made that directory, I'm also gonna go into that directory. So you have to be inside the directory to actually tell Git this is the folder that you want to track. So we're going to go and hit CD for change directory, Git video series, which is exactly what I just called it. And we can see here, this is my computer and the user that's logged into my computer. Then we can see that I am in this working directory. I am in the Git video series directory here. So now that we have a directory, we don't have anything in the directory, but at least we have the directory. So now that we have the directory, we get to actually tell Git, hey, let's start tracking changes inside this directory. So to do that, we have to initialize Git. So we run a git init command. So git init, enter, and it says I initialized an empty Git repo in, here's my path to it, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted. So now we are actually going to create a new file, new folder, all that kind of jazz, because right now we initialized an empty Git repo. Well, there's nothing really to track since it's empty. So let's go ahead and add something in. I'm going to go ahead and actually open VS Code back up and open that folder that we just made. Dobby, stop. Get video series here, open. So we are inside this folder right now in VS Code. So there's nothing else going on. We are just purely inside this folder. Now let's just create a basic index.html file. That way we have something to track, something that's kind of codey. And we can just make it and open it in the browser that says, hello Git. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit new file here. And we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and save it first and call it index.html, because that's what I said we would do. Now we can just say HTML5. We have things here. Whoops. Let's just fill out the good stuff. And now H1, hello Git. So now that we have a file here, I can go and open it in the browser. Developer, Git. Cool, we see it. We have the H1 here in the browser itself, so that works. So now the next step. So now we've initialized the Git repo. The next step in the workflow is to actually, I did not talk about what the Git workflow was first. Now that we've created the index.html file, the next thing we need to do is add this file to the staging area. So whenever I did git enter in my terminal earlier, I was able to look up these most commonly used commands. So like I said, we need to add these files. Hey, look at that. We have a git add here. So we're going to go ahead and specify this. So what we do is we say git add, and then you specify the file name. So index.html, enter. So Git has been so we have now added index.html to our staging area. Now we want to commit this. So we can say git. So when I say commit is we want to create this snapshot in time. So we're going to say commit, git commit -m. And when we create a commit message, we also have to associate a message with the commit. The reason for this is by associating this message with the commit, we get to actually see what was going on at that time. So I like to do something that's actually related to what I did. That way it's a nice overview in my logs. So we'll say git commit -m, created an HTML file to show hello Git. Then you hit enter, and now we can see here that it says master root commit, created an HTML file to show hello Git. There's one file changed, 12 things were added, and we created the index.html. So basically we have committed we have committed things here. Now we would repeat these steps, git add, git commit, until you were ready to actually push up to the server. You could push after every commit if you wanted to. You could or you could just keep going, keep creating keep committing, and then once you have a bunch of commits added up, you can push that to the server. It honestly just depends on what type of workflow you're doing at that time. Now, after you've committed these changes, you've taken this. So now after you've committed these changes, you've taken the snapshot. The next thing, like I said, is to push. We're not going to push, like I said, because pushing really would just go to a remote server somewhere like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. So let's actually make another change real quick, and let's repeat these git add, git commit steps just one more time, so that we can actually see the log of commits. So, like I said, that was the basic workflow though. You have to initialize the folder, you then create some files, modify some files, add them, commit them, push them. After you you will repeat add and commit and push as needed as you work throughout the project. So let's go ahead and make one more change here. Let's add a little bit of text underneath. So now we have, this is an example of a change here. So let's go ahead. Like I said, we have to keep repeating these steps. So we'll do git add. So that's, sorry. Nope, I forgot to specify. I forgot to specify the file, so git add index.html, and then we're gonna say git commit -m added paragraph. Now that we have multiple commits in, we can actually do something cool. I said that you could be able to see your history. That's exactly what we can do here. So let's go ahead and do that here. Which again, in here, it shows you to examine history and state. There's one in here to say git log. So that's going to show your commit logs. So if I hit git logs, git log, here are our 2 commits. And it goes in most recent to least recent. So we have who created it, me, the date it was created. So it's just a date based on my computer here. And then and then what that message. So I said I added a paragraph, or if you go and look at the first commit, it actually says I created an HTML file, which is really great. And that's how you can actually start seeing your history. So that's really the basics of what Git is, why you should be using it, and how the workflow is supposed to work, how the very basic workflow is supposed to work. In the next couple of videos I'm going to post are going to be all about Git. So we have the next one is going to be actually using a remote server, how to push changes, how to pull changes, how to clone that repo, so how to get code back onto your machine if you delete the folder, that kind of stuff. The video after that is going to be a more advanced workflow using branches, merging, tags. And then after that, we're just going to talk about some more tips and tricks that I found useful as I work with other people on some projects. So like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell, make sure you get notified when the next couple of videos are going to come out. And then that would be it. If you found this video useful, always please hit that like button. If you didn't find it useful and you think that I missed something, then make sure to drop that in the comments, because I'd really like to know. I always want to know how I can improve and how I can help you guys better. So again, thank you very much, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye.